All right, somebody sent me a note on the My Pillow text line, Joey, from South Carolina. This is supposedly the final number. I don't know if this is final or not. I think it is. It shows Sherry Biggs winning that's the 3rd congressional district, right?
That's right. 3rd Congressional
So
District. This is an open seat because Jeff Duncan chose not to run for reelection. He had been in this seat for a number of years. Of course, he had some issues with his wife. She filed for divorce after it was revealed that he had been having an affair with a lobbyist in Washington. So he chose not to seek reelection. An open seat. There were 7 candidates initially running for this seat.
all right, so it's down to Sherry Biggs, Mark Burns. Pastor Mark Burns was endorsed by Donald Trump. Sherry Biggs gave that disastrous interview to Tara on the morning show on WORD a couple of weeks ago that everybody was buzzing about. She seemed completely unprepared. I mean, it was really something. I heard that interview. I thought, oh, my word. So here was the final. According to what somebody texted me, Sherry Biggs got 50.99% of the final vote. She got 28,130 votes. Mark Burns got 49.01%, so he was within a whisker. He finished it with 27,043 votes. Are those the totals you have, Joey?
Those are the unofficial totals as of now. Of course, this will be certified tomorrow by the South Carolina Election Commission. But yes, those are the total numbers that they're reporting.
Now I'm looking at this number. So she got 28,130. He got 27,043. Is that within the margin of error for a recount?
No, it is not. There will not be a recount. Now, quite often, the election commission, they'll go back and kind of tidy things up if there are any discrepancies or whatever. Doesn't appear there are any, so I don't expect a recount on this. But the interesting thing here, and as you and I had talked earlier, the buzz around South Carolina is just sort of the lack of interest. And this was the most heated race of any of the races in South Carolina. But when you look at those numbers, and I don't have the overall turnout for
Well, I do.
that 3rd congressional district. I'm talking about percentage wise. Do you have a percentage?
I do. Well, that texter who I think, because if those numbers match your numbers, then maybe the voter turnout number is correct as well, because it says the total ballots cast, 87,170. That's out of a total of 1.4 million registered voters. The voter turnout, Joey, according to this texter from South Carolina, was 5.84%.
Yes, and that's what we're hearing around the state is some areas, I think the highest reported was just over 7%. We had some areas that was less than 5% turnout, yes.
Now, Joey, again, like you said, a heated, hotly contested race. You and I and Peg went to church with the King family over at Blue Ridge Community Fellowship over in Clemson this past Sunday, and a guy came up to you and big fan of the station and our work, and he said, Joey, what do I do here? Sherry Burns or Sherry Biggs or Mark Burns? These are terrible choices. I mean, Tara and Charlie and Bill and you and all of us talk a lot in South Carolina about the candidate quality. What's the quality of the candidates that the voters are determining? Do you think this pitiful turnout yesterday in the South Carolina primary is a reflection of candidate quality, or is it that people are apathetic, they're burned out, they don't trust the voting system? How can you explain that about 95% of eligible voters yesterday didn't bother to go to the polls in South Carolina?
Well, I do think it's a combination of all of the above. I do think there's some fatigue. People are just tired of hearing this. I've heard this over and over in the past couple of weeks because we had a lot of what is called dark money spent not only in this race, but other local races. For the first time that I have seen, we had outside money being spent on local legislative races, primarily targeting those members of the state legislature who are part of the Freedom Caucus. So millions and millions of dollars were spent. And I think people were just tired of being bombarded with text messages, emails, and going to their mailbox every day and being bombarded with all this mail.
So,
So I
so
think there was just some overwhelming feelings there. But overall, I think in this third congressional district race, people just felt like they didn't have a good choice. Again, you started with 7 candidates, and we ended up with Miss Biggs and Mr. Burns. But I
yeah.
had a lot of people say, I really don't have a choice here.
All right, so here's my question, and this is what it really does worry me. Could this voter apathy, and there's no question, whatever reason whatever describes why the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of people stayed home yesterday, if that bleeds over into November 5th, if the general election has people staying home, we're in big, big trouble, Joey, and I'm worried that people are going to stay home.
Well, it is very discouraging. And yes, I mean, if this happens in November, uh, who does it benefit? And I'm not sure about the answer to that because, by the way, overall turnout, we had Democrat primaries yesterday as well in South Carolina. The turnout in those were even worse than the Republican. So the Democrats weren't too enthused either. But you're right. I mean, this is something that may keep us up at night between now and November, trying to decide if people are going to show up.
I mean, look, on paper, I mean, every poll shows Trump leading in the swing states. Every poll shows him winning. There was one outlier, the Fox poll, that showed Biden up by 2 points the other day. I don't know whether to believe that or not, but, Trump is the odds-on favorite to win, but he won't win if we stay home. If South Carolinians, if all of us don't go to the ballot box, if we don't vote, they're gonna take this thing, Joey.
Yeah. Well, and it's one thing to answer your phone and talk with someone asking you questions about an election and participating in a poll, whether it is a phone call or online. It's another to actually get in your car and drive to your polling place. And
Wow.
if yesterday's any indication, we could be in trouble.
All right. I'll see you in Alaska in a couple of days. Thanks, Joey. Travel safe. I'll see you up there. Actually, we're going to meet in Atlanta, and then we're off to Seattle, and then setting sail from the Seattle port on Saturday. The great Joey Hudson joining us here on the Mike Gallagher Show. Let me just ask you, what is it going to take to get people to show up on November 5th? What's keeping people from voting in the primaries? What in the world's going on here?
Mike Gallagher.
What's it gonna take to talk people into making sure you show up for the general election? Al's in Greenville, South Carolina. Hey, Al, you didn't vote yesterday?
No, Mike, I didn't vote. I called every congressman in the state. I called every senator in the state, and I told them to stop the shenanigans going on with Trump in Washington. They could have brought Congress to their knees to
Right.
stop all this stuff,
Right.
and they chose not to. And I'm going to vote for President Trump. I'm going to vote in the presidential election, but
Got it.
Tim Tiemens and all these, I can't think of all their names. Lindsey Graham.
But
Tim
I got to ask you, doesn't it feel weird to do all the effort you put in, which I commend you for? That's great that you called your representatives, you called your elected officials, but you didn't go to the ballot box? Doesn't that feel weird?
Well, whether the lady who won or whoever won, they're not doing anything about anything. I mean, I might as well have a Democrat in there. They're not doing anything.
But,
they could bring Congress to a screeching halt.
right, if they
They
did,
could
yeah.
start yanking money from the FBI. They could do a lot of things, and they're not doing a damn thing.
All right, let's see what others think. Glad you called. Randy in Paducah, Kentucky. Randy, tell us about low voter turnout. Is this going to plague us on November 5th?
My curiosity is, what did they have to vote for besides a primary that was already decided?
Right. So you think the people, they'll be like the last caller. They'll show up for the general.
I believe so.
I hope so. Hope you're right. Tommy in Jacksonville, Florida. Tommy, how are you?
I'm doing good. My question is, you said that Trump was up in most polls except for one outlier of Fox News where he was down, and you don't believe that. You don't know if you believe that poll. My question is, why is it that when the poll is not in our favor, we don't believe the poll?
That's fair. Well, the pragmatic answer, the realistic answer is, if you've got 12 polls showing Trump ahead and one of them shows him behind, just the law of averages would suggest that the one that shows him behind is an outlier. But I'll concede, you're right. The funny thing about polls is when they're going our way, we like them. If they're not, we don't like them very much.